Imagine you walk into a country that is completely broke. Its king just died, leaving behind the largest national debt in European history. The treasury is empty. The people are starving. And the entire financial system is held together by little more than prayer and borrowed time. Now imagine one man walks in, a foreigner, a gambler, a convicted murderer, and says, "I can fix this. I know the secret to infinite wealth." And the most powerful nation on earth believes him. This is the story of John Law, the man who invented modern money, the man who made France richer than it had ever been, and the man who, in less than 3 years, destroyed it all, triggering one of the greatest financial collapses in human history. To understand what John Law did, you have to understand the world he walked into. It is 1715. King Louis XIV of France, the Sun King, the most powerful monarch in Europe, is dead. He reigned for 72 years. He built Versailles. He fought endless wars. And he spent money like it was water, leaving France with a debt so enormous it consumed nearly all the country's tax revenue just to pay the interest. France didn't just have a debt problem, it had a trust problem. Merchants didn't trust the government. Investors didn't trust the banks. And the economy, the actual, living, breathing economy of ordinary people, was grinding to a halt because there simply wasn't enough money in circulation to keep it moving. Into this moment walks John Law. Born in Edinburgh in 1671, the son of a goldsmith, Law was brilliant and reckless in equal measure. He had a gift for mathematics, a talent for cards, and a temperament that made him incapable of playing it safe. At 23, he killed a man in a duel in London over a woman. He was sentenced to death, escaped from prison, and spent the next 2 decades wandering Europe, gambling in Amsterdam, theorizing in Venice, writing economic pamphlets no one wanted to read. But Law had an idea, a genuinely radical idea, one that would change the world. He believed that gold was the wrong foundation for an economy. Gold was finite, it was heavy, it was slow. And in a world where commerce was expanding faster than mines could produce, the scarcity of gold was strangling growth. What economies needed, Law argued, was paper money backed not by metal, but by land, by assets, by the productive capacity of the nation itself. This sounds familiar today, because it is how most modern economies actually work. But in 1715, it sounded like magic, or madness, or both. Law pitched his idea to half the courts of Europe. He was rejected everywhere. Then he arrived in France, and he found a country desperate enough to listen. The regent of France, Philippe d'Orléans, ruling on behalf of the young King Louis XV, was a pragmatic man facing an impossible situation. He gave Law permission to open a private bank in 1716, the Banque Générale. It could issue paper banknotes, redeemable for gold. It could make loans. It could, theoretically, pump new life into a dead economy. And it worked. Almost immediately, it worked. Trade increased. Businesses expanded. Tax revenues climbed. The banknotes circulated freely. People who had hoarded gold started spending it because the paper was easier to carry and the bank for now honored every note. Philippe was impressed. In 1718, the bank was nationalized. It became the Banque Royale, and John Law was given something truly extraordinary, a monopoly. Not just over the bank, over everything. Law merged his bank with a trading company, the Mississippi Company, which held the rights to France's vast colonial territories in North America, Louisiana, the entire Mississippi River Valley. Land that, on paper, stretched almost a third of the continent. Law began selling shares in this company to the public, promising investors a piece of the New World's unimaginable riches. The shares sold out instantly. People begged for more. Law issued more. The share price rose. People borrowed money to buy shares. The share price rose again, and then again, and then again. In 1719, John Law was appointed Controller General of Finances for France. He was, at that moment, the most powerful non-royal in the world. He controlled the central bank. He controlled the National Trading Company. He controlled the money supply of the wealthiest kingdom in Europe. And he kept printing. What happened next is one of the most dramatic episodes in the history of money. The Mississippi Company's share price in 1719 rose by more than 3,000% in under 12 months. Ordinary people, servants, merchants, farmers became millionaires. The word millionaire was actually coined during this period in Paris to describe the people getting rich from Law's scheme. The street where Law's offices stood, the Rue Quincampoix, was so crowded with investors every morning that people reportedly rented upper-floor windows just to watch the chaos below. France was euphoric, and John Law was a god. But underneath the euphoria, something was deeply wrong. The Mississippi Company's American territories were largely wilderness. The promised gold mines didn't exist. The settlers' laws sent to Louisiana were dying of disease and starvation. The company was not generating real returns. The wealth was not real. It was paper promises, backed by paper shares, backed by paper money, printed by a paper bank. The entire system rested on one thing: belief. And in early 1720, belief began to crack. A few of the wealthiest early investors, aristocrats, who understood that paper was only as good as the institution behind it, quietly began selling their shares and converting their paper money back into gold and silver. Law tried to stop them. He introduced laws making it illegal to hold large amounts of gold. He devalued the share price to make conversion less attractive. He kept printing money to cover redemptions. It didn't work. It made things worse. When word spread that the rich were getting out, the public panicked. Everyone rushed to the bank to convert their paper into something real. But there was nowhere near enough gold to cover what Law had printed. The bank closed its doors. The share price collapsed. Overnight, fortunes that had taken years to build evaporated in days. The streets that had been full of euphoria were now full of fury. The aftermath was brutal. John Law fled France in December 1720, just 4 years after he had arrived to save it. He left in disguise, reportedly with little more than the clothes on his back. The man who had once been more powerful than kings died in Venice 9 years later, almost penniless, spending his final years gambling to survive the same way he had started. France was left in ruins. The Mississippi bubble didn't just wipe out individual fortunes. It destroyed public trust in paper money and central banking so completely that France refused to create another national bank for nearly a century. Historians argue this financial trauma made France far more resistant to the kind of industrial investment that powered England's Industrial Revolution, slowing French economic development for decades. The people who suffered most were not the aristocrats, who had gotten out early. They were ordinary people, shopkeepers, craftsmen, families who had believed the promise and held on too long. As always, so what do we take from this? John Law was not simply a fraud. His underlying theory that paper money backed by productive assets could unlock economic growth was, in a fundamental sense, correct. The entire modern global financial system is built on a version of that idea. Central banks, quantitative easing, fiat currency, all of it carries Law's fingerprints. What destroyed him was not the concept, it was the execution. He kept expanding the money supply long after any rational connection to underlying value had broken down. He let belief become the only asset. He confused the map for the territory. Every financial bubble in history follows the same arc: a genuine insight, a working system, a moment where growth outpaces reality, a euphoria that silences doubt, and then the reckoning, which is never shared equally. The Mississippi bubble didn't happen because people were stupid. It happened because the promise was so compelling, the gains so real in the early stages, that walking away felt like leaving money on the table. It always does. John Law gave France infinite money. The only thing infinite about it, in the end, was the damage it left behind.